On the line right now is Congressman Richard Hanna. Good morning, Congressman. Thanks for coming on this morning.
Hey, Billy, it's Richard. How you doing?
Good. So, in a nutshell, what are you thinking right now?
About anything particular?
Well, I'd throw out the presidential. You have the vice presidential debate coming up tonight.
It comes under the heading of "You can't make this stuff up."
Yeah.
It's quite amazing, disappointing in multiple levels for me. Certainly, everyone would like to see candidates that they're, particularly me on the Republican side. It looks like the extremes of the party have taken over. It's been that way in Washington since I've been there, and I think they're out of the mainstream of America. A lot of people would disagree with me, but if you look at the primary process, there were certainly people that I could have supported, might have liked to support, but not Trump. And I'm more convinced of that now than ever. Daily, he says something that's so thoroughly offensive that I have to say sometimes I'm amazed that anybody supports him at all. I realize that people are angry with government and frustrated and looking for deep change, and that a lot of people don't trust Hillary. I get all of that, but turning that into a vote for Donald Trump, for me, when the Republican Party really should, I think, give themselves 4 years to come up with a much more palatable candidate and win an election, which they can do.
You know, it is. I've wondered, is this all happening because there's so much change going on? And one could blame President Obama for this. So first of all, we have to blame him for being black. He's the first black president. That alone, especially in the South, will certainly bother some people in America.
Well, as he likes to say, he was black before he became president, and he's still elected. So, but I do agree with you, the basic premise that with Obamacare, which
Obamacare, another great example.
Yeah, well, just a number of things. I think that the overwhelming number of rules and regulations that they put on small businesses really are hurting. You see, our growth our GDP has never been lower since World War II, not as long. And I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be upset with government right now, and frankly, with the Obama administration.
Yeah.
I'm a fiscal conservative and socially a moderate guy, and that may get me in trouble for some places. But if you look at my personal record in voting, you'd find that I've always supported small business, never supported Obamacare, although there are portions of it that I think I do like.
Yeah.
But it's falling apart at the seams.
I don't want to come on. I want to finish what I had there because I don't want people to think that I'm implying that this is just because Obama is black. But if you take that and then you add to it all of the change from Obamacare to gay rights issues to the bathroom issue, all these social issues, it just all happened. This is almost like the change. We saw so much change in the 60s with the civil rights movement and women.
But I think you have to
realize,
a lot of this is pushed by an agenda on the Republican Party side that is against women's health care in terms of choice. That is not, if you look at the Republican platform, it's very, very much anti-LGBT community.
Right.
It's not pro-choice. It's actually a more severe platform than it was 4 years ago. So everybody's contributing to this. And it's not. There's no one could say that the president's entirely responsible because, frankly, he's pushing back on an agenda that he doesn't like.
I'm not.
Also, the Supreme Court added to this. I think I agree with their verdict, but a lot of people don't. So you're right. A lot of things are coalescing, and people are looking at this country, and they don't like the direction they see it going.
Yeah. I'm not necessarily saying that anybody is at fault. I'm just saying there's a lot of change, which when that happens, you have a bit of an uprising. And I wonder because it seems that there is a group out there that just wants to take the table and turn it upside down. They don't care who's in.
I think, too, a lot of people are disappointed.
Yeah.
When you and I grew up, I mean, I'm older than you are, but you could really depend on getting a job, keeping it throughout your life, doing better than your parents did, and looking forward to your children doing better than you did, better in a whole host of ways. And, and as a country, we're still the greatest country in the world, the best place to be and make a living. But people people are disappointed, and their expectations haven't been met. And being educated and being being at the top of something that makes you competitive as an individual in this country is so much more difficult and requires so much more work that people look out there and they say, "My God, everything I planned on isn't happening, and by the way, it's not happening for my kids."
It's a middle class issue that doesn't have the growth opportunity that we grew up believing that we would have, right?
And then you got this battle over trade, and how do we manage it, and what's good trade, what's bad trade, what's fair trade, and we can't close out 95% of the world's consumers,
right?
Yet you have this uproar over the Trans-Pacific Partnership and other agreements and NAFTA. And, we have not made good trade deals over time, and some of them certainly have worked against us, but a lot of the jobs we've lost are jobs that other people are willing to do at such a price that we would never be able to maintain a standard of living doing those jobs anyway. Yeah. We need to, basically not reinvent, but dig in deeper, be what we've always been, highly competitive, highly educated, invest in our infrastructure, invest in our education, and get out there and compete. Because if we don't, if all we do is complain, we're not going to beat the rest of the world at the game that we invented.
Right. It's interesting when you really look back at the big time of growth in the United States. We were willing to work for those low wages, and I'm sure other countries were looking on and saying, these Americans will work for anything. And then, of course, we, unions came to be a part of our workforce and higher wages, and here we are today with benefits, and it's just a completely we become what we were kind of competing against. Manaski, go ahead.
We had started talking about the quality of candidates in this 2016 presidential race. I was going to ask about Gary Johnson, your thoughts on him. Some of the missteps. I mean, the Libertarian candidate has made his own missteps, and should he be part of the national debates? Should he be allowed?
The Navy just endorsed him.
Anybody who wants to get out there and do this, let them do it.
Yeah.
Competition is good. Ideas that are presented thoughtfully, that are actually real ideas and not grasping onto hate and frustration and people's disappointment, that's what we should look for. And that's what's missing in this campaign. I mean, Donald Trump looks like a guy who's never read a book. As a matter of fact, he brags about that. He looks like a guy who doesn't understand NATO, doesn't understand that there's a difference between a hand grenade and a nuclear weapon. And yet you look at Hillary Clinton, she does know what she's doing. She has a grasp on these issues. Now people don't trust her. They believe that she's dishonest, that you look at the emails that have been deleted, Benghazi and all those things. And so I get that too. I also know that as a Washington person who watches these debates back and forth, you realize that people have spent millions of dollars discrediting both candidates. So you're kind of left out there saying, what's the reality of all of this? And
how about we're talking about Johnson, and I want to switch to the 22nd congressional district.
He's a character, Johnson. I mean,
he is. He had a moment the other day when doing an interview. He stuck his tongue out. It was almost like he was having some sort of a Tourette seizure or something.
Like a guy who was pitching a fit on national television.
Craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. He was making these noises and sticking his tongue out, and the woman doing the interview was
can't name a world leader he likes.
My God.
There's a lot of members of the Republican Party who have said, I'm not voting for Trump, but I'm voting for Johnson.
Yeah.
I think you're throwing the vote away voting for Johnson. He has zero chance, and if you want to affect change, you vote for the presidential candidate, one of the two, who's going to win, and make a real difference.
By the way, on the Johnson thing, and then I'll go to the congressional race. William Weld, who is his running mate, Johnson's running mate, was asked on Friday, who do you feel is the most competent to become president, the most qualified to become president? His answer was not Gary Johnson. We all know what it was. It was Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, well, he's right. He's absolutely right. Wells should swap places with Johnson. They'd have a better shot.
I totally agree. Wells would be a better candidate.
Of the vote,
yeah, no doubt about it. Okay.
Well, hey, you can't fault a guy for being honest.
No doubt about it. I understand. And, okay, 22nd Congressional District poll just came out. It has, it really has Kim Myers gaining ground to the point that Claudia Tenney is now up by 5. and in double digits also is Martin Babnick. What are your thoughts on this race?
Well, clearly, having been in Washington for 6 years now, and watching Claudia's history in Albany, and knowing that we live in the 49th least competitive state in the country, and she's been a part of that, has affected no change, has gotten no bills passed, voted against her own community in terms of the Nano Center, voted against the Broome County community and their huge business at the University of Binghamton. That is an anchor store for that community. I don't see how anybody can support her, knowing that she's become a brand, a serial candidate. I don't think she's run for 6 or 7 different times in her life. I can't support her because she's voted against me. She's voted against our community.
Yeah.
And that's not your job. It's not your job to get on Fox News and be a voice for whatever insanity is out there for the day. And I understand people support her for the same reason that people support Donald Trump. But being in D.C., watching the government shutdown, which I'm sure she'd be a part of, you can't vote to not pay last year's bills, which, raising the debt ceiling, terrible thing to do, absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Unless you want to see everybody in America, interest rates go up and the value of the dollar go down. On the other hand, I also know Babinec. I've met him, sat with him, talked to him. He's a bright guy, a very nice guy, a lot of experience, a little wonky at times, but that's not a bad thing. I know Kim Myers. She's a delightful lady. And in spite of what people think, I know there's ads running saying that you don't need more millionaires in Congress. Guess what? You don't need more millionaires in Congress, but you do need people who don't need the job.
Right.
People for whom who have an opportunity to make a living outside of government, not career politicians like Claudia. It seems like she's got to be the most insecure person I know. Just can't not run for something. And I wish to hell I could support the candidate, the nominee for the Republican Party. I certainly thought Jim Wells was a great guy. It would have been easy for me to support Jim.
Stephen Wells, yeah.
Thank you, Steve Wells. But Kim Myers is a fine person. I think Babinec is a reasonable alternative if you want an independent. And so I haven't decided personally which way to go on that, but I think we do have real choices from real people with experience that's outside of government that are doing it for the right reasons, and that's Kim Myers or that's Mr. Babinec.
Yeah.
So
I want to ask you about
if you're a person who believes in term limits, why would you support Claudia?
I want to ask you a question about this is politics. One would say, and Claudia's really working to try to reposition Babinec as a liberal. She talked about that on the air with us last week. Well, let me just say,
that may be because he's taken votes.
Well, I want to throw this political thing out at you, and that is most likely he's taking votes from Claudia. So one would say that Claudia and Babinec split the Republican vote, and Myers becomes the congresswoman. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if that's what happens, that's what happens. You can't, each of these three people has done the hard work to get on the ballot. I give them all credit for that. That is not an easy thing to do. I know that. I've been through it. And if that's what happens, then that's what it is. I also think that that's a sign of the times. This is a Republican district. It's an R plus some number of, I think, 3 or maybe 2 or 3. So that if somebody like Claudia wins by 34% of the vote, I think that's not a good sign because it really shows that most people don't want her. I'd put that out there as it's certainly possible that can happen. But if I were in her position, I'd be saying, what did I do to disenfranchise or turn that many people away from me? Well, if you look at the polling, Claudia is least popular in places where they know her. She's doing better in Binghamton, I understand, than she is the Binghamton community than she is up here. In Sherburne, where her brother's business is, her family business is, we in the primary we overwhelmingly beat her. And,
yeah.
And none of this is personal. It's just I know what goes on down there. I know who the problem people are. And I want people that are down there that will work with one another to get things done. And that's what I've done. I mean, I know that people, I go wherever I go, I hear people who are very pleased with my record and people who are unhappy with it. And what I know is that I work for 717,000. And I've said this many times. And not 10,000 or 20 or 30, not the extremes on either party, but you try to draw a balance to build a country that you're comfortable that you've represented well and broadly. And I explain all my votes. We've written 930-something vote explanations. And, we've had, 75 or 80 town hall meetings. We've done the job, I think, not perfectly, and I think I can always do better, but that's what this job is. It's not being on TV every night screaming about Obama or yelling. It's about sitting down and doing the hard work of developing policies that help your children's future.
I have 30 seconds left, so I have to be quick here. I know you have an event coming up for kids who are considering the military academy.
Yeah, we do that, and it's one of the great privileges of this job is we have a military academy committee. There are 20 people on it, and they sit down and they do the very difficult work of plowing through the resumes, the history stories of all these young men and women who want to join one of the 5 branches of the armed services.
Can you just give me, I'm coming up on a news break, but date and time of that event?
What they should do if they're interested in applying to West Point or any other one of the branches of the armed service, they should call Jason Phelps in our office, and we will walk them through it.
Beautiful. And we have a local kid that was just on the air that I think is really worthy. I'm going to send that information along to your office
my
as well.
Office is completely independent. I find out who this group of people wants to appoint, and I appoint them.
All right. I am going to send that. I'll have Andrew send that information over to you. I am out of time. Congressman, thanks so much for taking the time.